Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to today's session. I will give 30 seconds while people jump in from the waiting room, and then we will dive right in. But I hope you are all doing well. Chat box is open, so feel free to let us know where you're joining from in the country. Whereabouts are you today, Michael?
In Paddington, London. That is where our UK office is. So yeah, in a wee work. So I have the suitably twee mug that comes with any wee work.
Very nice, very nice. I'm down in Kent and it is very grey here today, which is a bit of a shame. This time last week I was still in Jamaica, so it's not quite the same.
Those
But
really aren't the same.
exactly that, right. I think everyone is jumping in, so let's get started. Welcome to today's session, How to Manage a Multi-Entity Group on Xero. You are joined by myself, Kaylee Graham. I am the Head of Partnerships and Growth over at Telleroo. And we also have Michael Wood with us, who is the founder and CEO of Translucent. So, a little bit of housekeeping. Chat is open, as I say. Feel free to use that throughout the session. There is also a Q&A box for questions throughout. Please do use this just so they don't get lost in the chat, and then we will get to those towards the end of the session. Today, we're going to talk all things multi-entity, so understanding complexity and challenges of multi-entity organizations, how the technology landscape has changed, is changing, common mistakes that we see, and how Translucent and Telleroo may help to tackle these. And ultimately, what does the future look like for multi-entities? So before we dive in, quick question for everyone that is joining us. Please do pop in the chat. How many entities are in your group? Always helpful for us to know so that we can steer the conversation appropriately. But without further ado, let's dive in. So, what is Telleroo? So, Telleroo is a bulk supplier and payroll payment software that aims to cut out errors, save time, and de risk the whole payment process for businesses. So, we're not going to dive into a demo today, but the whole point of this is that we have things like built in approvals and review processes. We have confirmation of payee and alerts on new and updated details. You've got a direct bank feed back into Xero. And all of these things are there to help catch mistakes and ultimately prevent things like payment fraud, thus making it a rather essential tool, if I do say so myself, for managing payments for multi-entities. But over to you, Michael, for an intro to Translucent, please.
Sure. So really simply, Translucent has been built to be the solution for managing multiple zeros. So the solution for groups on Xero, the solution for multi-entity businesses on Xero. So what does it mean? It means we're building app after app after app, and we'll probably talk a bit about this in the webinar. The first app we built was Search, so bringing all the journals, all the invoices, all the transactions into one place, no matter how many zeros. And I see we've already got one group with 100 plus, the ability to search all those entities in one place. Then we worked on consolidation for the group reporting next. Then we've been working on intercompany to automate all those intercompany processes. We've also been working on treasury and financial close. So yeah, but we've got a lot more to build. But yeah, just trying to be that single source to manage multiple zeros in one place.
Amazing. I'm going to stop sharing slides so that we can just have a little bit of a chat. But I guess my
Oh,
first question to you is why multi-entities? What was the challenge that you guys set out to solve?
that's an easy one. You give me a softball to start with.
Easy.
Um, exactly. So my background was I founded a company called Receipt Bank that's now known as Dext. And as we built that, we opened offices around the world. And circa sort of 2000, 2015, 2016, we were 8 entities around the world. And so that was trying to basically solve this problem head on of how to manage a larger business using multiple zeros. And we spent about 2, 3 years using a succession of different apps, using a lot of Excel, using a lot of manual processes. And in the end, we were forced to move to NetSuite. And I'm sure there's quite a few people on this call who have seen that project and seen that process. It is not easy. It is not fun. It is not cheap. And what was very obvious to me was that a large number of businesses want to stay on Xero. A large number of businesses are groups on Xero. They have no need of NetSuite. They have no desire to move to NetSuite. But equally, there was this enormous gap of how to turn a system like Xero, which, let's be frank, for all its strengths, is designed for a single entity, how to turn that system into something that could easily handle a group. So that's what we're building at Translucent.
Amazing. Diving into that a little bit deeper then, what are the real challenges here that people are facing? What are those big operational challenges that people are having, whether they're managing 6 or 106 different entities?
So if I may, you just turn the slides off. If I may just jump into sort of 2 or 3
Yeah,
slides, and don't
absolutely.
worry, everyone, this isn't going to be slide heavy, but just slightly illustrate the point around this. And also, for those of you that maybe joined a little bit later, the reason there's a whole lot of numbers down the right-hand side in the chat is right at the beginning, we asked everyone how many entities they have in their group. So if anyone's joined later, if you could sort of continue to add, and as Kaylee said earlier, it sort of helps us sort of steer the conversation appropriately. But I'll very quickly, if I can sort of steal the share screen.
Absolutely.
Boom, boom, boom.
Well, there we go. We've got another one. 14 entities in that one. Very nice.
Oh, you know what? I've opened a new laptop today. It's not going to work with those slides. I'll have to talk through it. I'll have to just freewheel it. So anyway, the question was all about what the problem is. And the way I think about the problem is the problem always comes with a very different symptom. So it would be impossible for me to be the voice of everyone in this webinar of the problem of multi-entity. So the problem shows the symptom to some groups as purely producing the board pack at the end of the month, sort of consolidation, group reporting style problem. For other people, it's much more day-to-day, week-to-week workflows like age payables and things like that, and trying to see across the group. For other people, it's things like credit control. For other people, it's things that are more closely aligned with financial close, things like intercompany and trying to deal with all the work that comes from the intercompany transactions, or other sort of financial close processes. But the way I really think about it is, although it shows up in these different workflows that frankly almost all businesses have, the core problem is the point of an accounting system is it's meant to be your system of record. So the point of having an accounting system, you've succeeded, yes. It's meant to be your system of record. So if you're running on Xero, you've paid for Xero, you've got the system of record. But as soon as you're multi-entity, Haley, if you can do the honors, your system of record ends up being Excel. So the core problem is you've paid for and you want to have an accounting system, which is your system of record, but because you're using Xero as your accounting system and Xero is not designed for multi-entity, it ends up your system of record is Excel. So and I'm sure many of us could quote the many positives of Excel, but despite the many positives, it is not good as a system of record. Various sheets, various versions of data, no audit flow, people making changes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the problem is, if you're multi-entity on Xero, your system of record is Excel. And once again, Kaylee, if you could jump. So the initial problem, as I say, is the symptom. Normally, someone is looking for a single system for financial close, FP&A, procurement, reporting, whatever it might be. But actually, the core problem that one really needs to solve is, and this is the final slide, I promise everyone, how to get back to a single system, how to have a consolidated set of your accounting and financial data. So that's the way I always think about it, is the problem shows up in one place. And as I say, it shows up for different groups in different places. And that's not related to the size of the group. It's not related to the geography of the group. It's not related to the nature of the business of the group. It is just tends to be one process is breaking before the others. And that's the process that tends to make people sort of think, oh, wait, I've got a multi-entity problem here. But often, rather than trying to solve that, the key thing is how to get back to a single system. And we can get rid of the slides at that.
Beautiful. Thank you. I guess my question is then where do you start? Where do you start with something like that, right? Where you've got potentially all of these different challenges and a bunch of different processes, and the goal is get back to a single system, if you have 106 entities, where do you start with a process like that?
Cool. So obviously that's going to depend on who you speak to. If you were speaking to a NetSuite salesperson and they would say, well, that's a no-brainer. What you obviously have to do is you have to migrate. You're using Xero, it's an SMB system, you're multi-entity, you're in the wrong place, you need to migrate. So that would be one perspective. Another perspective would be actually don't worry about the wider problem. Just worry about the problem you've got in front of you. So if you've got a board pack issue and you need to do the consolidation for it, just look for a consolidation or a reporting tool, and there you go. My perspective, and obviously I'm not unbiased in this, but my perspective at Translucent, having gone through the problem and having built a solution for this, is actually you're looking for a platform that's going to grow with you and solve, if not all the problems, at least many of the problems over time. So there isn't one simple answer. I could easily spend much longer giving the translucent sales pitch, but I don't think that's what people want to hear. So I think there's sort of three answers there. It's look for a platform that's going to solve all the problems or many of the problems in one place. Look for a ERP, or go for app after app for problem after problem would be the three different approaches.
Amazing. And in the clients that are coming to you guys at the moment, are you seeing any themes in what that initial pain point is? What's driving people going out and looking for that solution?
To be honest, absolutely not. So it's a question we get asked quite a lot. Because at Translucent, we do several different apps all on one platform, all aimed at multi-entity. People often ask, oh, they all start with consolidation or they all start with intercompany? We just see, as I say, it's normally, for people here who are running everyone is 4+ entities, as they've written in the chat. So it normally is, but let's face it, if you're running 106 is a little different, and even I'd maybe argue 10 plus is a little different. But if you're arguing sub 10, you can manage on as a group on Xero using Excel and using other processes. It's not impossible. As I say, we did it for 2+ years. It's just it gets more and more painful over time, and it's more and more obvious how much you're using band-aids and sticking plasters to get there. And it's just which workflow tends to cause the biggest headache is the one that people start out with. So we absolutely have people coming to us saying, look, I'm having a huge problem with intercompany. I need you to automate the reconciliation of the intercompany loan accounts. We get other people saying, actually, it's intercompany, but it's about recharges. We get other people saying it's intercompany, but it's about the group bank rec. But then, of course, you get people saying, actually, I'm happy I've built my Excel model for my consolidation or indeed my intercompany. I just want to see everything in one place. So the fact that you've got search, and I can now very quickly see, okay, where is the Salesforce invoice for last month? Or, how much have we spent so far this year on, I don't know, hotels? In a very sort of quick way across the entities. We just see different things. So I'd love to give a simpler answer, but we don't have one. Or I don't
Which I
have one.
think is probably the theme here, right? Which is that actually it isn't simple, and it's going to depend on what it is that you're trying to achieve and what setup you've got currently, right?
Absolutely.
I guess on a slightly less positive note, what are the risks of not looking at solutions like this, right? And I appreciate there's always an element that software providers try and go down, right? Which is here's the risk if you don't do it. But I guess having managed multiple entities in that setting, what happens when things go wrong? What are the risks associated with it?
So I'm going to give a sort of maybe a little counterintuitive the answer people would expect from me. But again, I enjoy my Excel. And in my experience, for those in this webinar who are currently using Excel to manage their group and multi-entity processes, my guess is those spreadsheets are pretty impressive and they know how to drive them. So I would not say, oh my God, you're on a burning platform, and if you don't sort of make the change this month in October, the platform's going to burn and fall away. That's not my experience. In my experience, finance teams, accounting firms running these Excel models, they are impressive models and they are proficient people. So the status quo does sort of work. The issue is, as I say, anyone else trying to inherit those models. The issue is the amount of time. And Jonathan's come in here. Yes, a software system should be less manual and more error-free. So I was focusing on the risk. So it's not so much there's a risk with people continuing, but it absolutely is. It's the amount of time, the absence of an audit, and the absence of an audit is the other side of there will be manual errors. And more, we're building out tool sets for users that expose the different errors that are in their multi-entity data. And it is extraordinary. Obviously, I don't want to sort of give away sort of anecdotal stories around the sort of public webinar, but it is extraordinary. You know, we do see groups come onto Translucent and suddenly be, oh my God, I didn't realize, you know, frankly, the American team is, you know, they've done the intercompany process one way and the UK team's done it another way. And frankly, never the twain shall meet. So yeah, I'll sort of slightly pause there. I don't want to sort of say the way people are doing things today is sort of terrible, but yes, I think there is a better way.
Okay, and so I'm guessing on the flip side of that, that is the key benefits, right? Is time save and reducing the errors on that.
Time saved. The automation is more than time saved. It is, as Jonathan says, it's error-free, it's auditability, and I'd also say inheritability. And again, obviously, everyone else on this webinar who's in the audience can't nod, but I think you would if I was to say we all know how difficult it is to inherit someone else's spreadsheet. So whether that's inherit because it moves from one member of the team to another, whether it's someone going on holiday, whether it's a member of the team leaving, inheriting a spreadsheet is a truly awful inheritance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess thinking forward to the future, what trends are you expecting to see? What do you think the focus is going to be for you guys even moving forward?
Well, I won't focus on us. What I expect to see in the market is right now, it's fair to describe the market as having, as for accounting software, as basically having three layers. And I'll be, everyone, if they could please excuse me for being a little rough in my definitions, but you have SMB accounting software, you have mid-market software, and you have enterprise ERP software. So those are sort of the three layers. And if we can define the enterprise ERP layer starting at NetSuite, so NetSuite and above is the top layer. And then obviously Xero is in the bottom layer of SMB. Well, Xero from 2009 onwards built an unbelievable world-class API. And I suspect everyone in this webinar is taking advantage of it to some degree. Oh, that's how the light gone off in the room. 2 seconds. I did say this might happen.
No worries. The joys of
A
COVID.
little bit of amateurism from Michael. So let's talk about three layers and Xero's API. And so everyone will be taking advantage of this. Now, whether you're taking advantage of it with Telleroo or another solution, you know, you're probably using one or more apps from the Xero App Store via the API. And the Xero API is really, really good. And what's become obvious is that as other solutions around the world are also building, SMB accounting solutions are also building high quality APIs, it becomes obvious that a solution like Xero is superior than a solution like Sage Intacct when you think of it on a per entity basis. So these traditional mid-market solutions are not as good as Xero at running a UK entity. Their strengths are that they have the multi-entity, they have the group processes. But given the quality of the API of Xero, and as I say, some other solutions that are appearing in different geographies like mainland Europe around the world, it becomes less obvious that a mid-market still exists. So what I would say people should look out for is that three-layer approach of the market. The accounting software ERP market ends up becoming two layers. So there'll be the likes of Xero with their superior APIs, and then there'll be the NetSuites and above up to SAP, etc. So the one piece I would caution anyone looking at a mid-market vendor, I'd be very wary of with my software experience, because it's not very obvious that market is going to persist in a significant way, given what can be done with Xero's API.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, I think the API piece is so powerful. I mean, even now we've been around for a good few years, and even now when we show people what we were able to do from the payment side with the Xero API, people are still shocked and surprised, which is amazing, right? Okay, question for audience. Please do share in the chat what your biggest challenge is at the moment. I think that'd be really interesting for us to get a feel for. So feel free to share that. But what I want to do is jump into a little bit of Q&A initially, because we are getting some through. So I'm keen to get those going. First one for you, Michael, is
Before you go in
does
first one, just Kaylee, just to let everyone else know, I can't see these questions in advance. If the answers are awful, we're blaming Kaylee for giving me no heads up here. So, but let's go. Let's go.
Absolutely. So, does Translucent enable a live view across the entities, or do you have to wait until month end?
It's a live view. So we sync with Xero multiple times a day. And actually, we just launched a feature last week, which gives the live sync status by entity, and also the ability to just click sync now if you want literally the data to be completely up to date. But the reason we brought that sync status onto the home screen of every one of our apps was because people were saying, oh, I really need to have a sense of how live this data is.
Amazing. Super powerful that. I like that. What about multinational groups? What tips do you have for those?
The issue we see with multinational groups is obviously we could go into a black hole that is FX, which frankly I'm not going to take us into, because if we went into sort of detailed FX issues, we would very quickly expose my very limited knowledge of that topic, and it would be embarrassing. So definitely one could talk about FX, but putting that aside, I guess we see two types of multinational groups, or when you talk about tips, is it slightly comes back to that API point, because you see some groups who are operating what I would call a local setup. So the local team or the local accountancy firm has said, this is the best software locally, and they use that. The trouble with that is that often comes with very limited APIs. And so you end up although the local team are happy, you end up hugely sacrificing what the CFO or the group team are able to see. The other extreme of that is we definitely see, let's call it sort of CFO directed groups. So obviously it's a UK webinar. You might see a UK CFO saying, you know what? For all our 5 entities around the world, we're going to use Xero, and that's how it is.
Mhm.
And if you, the local team, need to run effectively a dual set of books, that's absolutely fine. But you need to be bringing the data into Xero, because that gives me the perfect view from a group side. So I think that's the really interesting spectrum that any group needs to think about. To what degree do they want to placate the local team or placate the global team?
Perfect. Thank you. This one says, can it show all customers across the group, i.e., a consolidated view of customers and suppliers?
Yes.
Excellent. Nice and quick. We like that one.
That's an easy one.
This one's good. Does free mean free or just a
Sorry,
trial?
was that into translucent or was that Telleroo as well, presumably? Or at
I
least some
think that was aimed
comparison.
at you.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah. Then, yeah, this one's good. Does free mean free or just a free trial?
So we absolutely have a free trial. Each of our apps has a free trial, 14 days. What we try to do with each app is, and sorry, by an app, I mean consolidation, search, intercompany, financial close, etc. With each app, we try to give something away for free. So we try to do a freemium for each app. But whether that's of use or not. So no, each app fundamentally is paid for after the free trial. But we do try to be generous and give some value away so that even if you're only using one of our apps, you can get value out of the other apps.
Amazing. Do Telleroo and Translucent have an integration so the AP is connected to payment? I can answer this one. The short answer is no, not currently. It's definitely something that we are investigating and looking at. We have a lot of multi-entities using Telleroo already to manage their payment functionality, and the API with Xero allows us to pull a lot of information in and make that process as simple as possible and manage intercompany payments as well. But we do not currently have an integration with these guys, but working on it. Beautiful. Here we go. How customizable are the consolidated accounts? Can you input KPIs to be produced in the board pack, for example?
That is a good question. So the honest answer for us is sort of at this stage, as in you can add metrics in Translucent to the P&L, but that functionality is pretty young at this stage. And I think if I'm very honest, in many use cases, it wouldn't meet the needs. It's something we know we need to develop further. Just a bit of background. Translucent is very new. We're about 2 years old, so we've only been in market, frankly, less than a year. So there's quite a few bits of the platform that are pretty new and need more development, and that is one. So the answer is yes, but only to a limited degree. Not one of our strengths.
We appreciate the honesty. I think that's really important when looking at software solutions as a whole, right? Is the honesty that's available and understanding what functionality there is, what's coming, and what's never coming, ultimately, right? um,
Absolutely.
Perfect. How does the intercompany function work? Is it reporting on codes or actual posting between entities?
So the intercompany, there's 4 workflows we provide within intercompany. We have one workflow that's about setting up recharges, whether one-off or ongoing. We have one that is about providing a matrix and reconciliation and posting workflow for loan accounts and AP and AR. The third one is one that's about intercompany audits. You're able to see all the historic intercompany transactions and who did them and things like that. Then the fourth one that comes out this quarter is the group bank rec. So the reason I give that answer on the direct answer is it's probably better sort of getting in touch with us and doing a demo that then we can answer sort of which workflow specifically that question relates to, rather than me trying to answer it here. And once again, any detailed questions I will not score well on. I will embarrass myself.
No problem at all. How frequently are your clients running intercompany and consolidation processes?
Oh, really good one. So the obvious answer would be sort of monthly or quarterly, but that isn't really what we see. And I'd be fascinated to get some sort of feedback on the chat on this or whoever asked the question, because we definitely see some people running the processes weekly. We do definitely see monthly. I can't think of many clients who leave it to quarterly. And obviously, there was the question earlier about live. We're seeing more and more people trying to, frankly, get towards a live set of books and understand the impediments in their numbers that mean the live numbers. To what degree can the live numbers be trusted?
Yeah.
So I think the answer I'd see is more and more finance teams trying to get more and more live, or further towards live and further away from a a more structured close process that might have been more typical historically.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the person that asked that has posted and they said, we reconcile intercompany accounts monthly for 6 entities.
Right.
So that feels about right. We've got one here for Telleroo, which is we have 7 restaurants. Can Telleroo run different approval processes for each, or does it just have to be one approval flow? The answer is you can have one for each. You can determine which users have access for what and who needs to be the approvers on each entity, and manage that accordingly. And then I'm going to say last one. Someone will probably post one while I'm reading this out, but I think last question, which is what advice do you have for completing month end for a group on Xero? Your top 2 tips, please.
That's a really hard question. That's a really hard
Yeah.
question given just the range of groups. Um, I think my answer would be I'm sort of going to give one tip. I'm going to cheat slightly, so I'll say it's one tip, but it could be interpreted as more. Um, if we think of that traditional financial close month end process and the checklists and things like that,
Mhm,
we're now in a place where quite a few of those processes can be, if not fully automated, at least they can be run far more frequently and therefore reducing the work at month end.
mhm,
So I think my big tip would be to go through your checklist and work out what actually could be nowadays an ongoing process as opposed to a month end process. And I'm a big believer in that. So obviously, I sat on the board at Dext. I sit on the board at Translucent. I sit on the board of quite a few other companies. And it was always interesting how much boards judge CFOs on the days to close. And it's so funny because it's one of those subtle metrics that isn't really talked about, maybe that explicitly to the CFO. Obviously, it's like, there's other more sort of concrete numbers, whether the success of a particular project or just obviously the financial strength of the business as a whole and things like that. But in all those board meetings, there's always the implicit judgment going on of the days to close is the closest metric a board have to being able to understand how well the finance team is being run.
mhm.
And so, even outside of that judgment, every team is trying to get it down as much as possible. But yeah, I think that would be my tip would be to to try and get as much out of the month end process and into an ongoing process. So the month end process is that bit of a smaller project.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to launch a poll for the audience to understand what support they need from us next. The answer might be nothing, it's some more information on both sides, or just from one. In the meantime, Michael, is there anything else you want to add for our lovely audience today?
Beyond being incredibly shocked that I'm not allowed to vote in this poll. And not only am I not allowed to vote, it's in sort of bold red light writing. I'm not sure if everyone else can see that. I've been feel very excluded.
We have
Um,
we have excluded you. I can only apologize.
yes. Um, it may be a terrible failure of imagination, but no, I can't think. We sort of covered quite a bit. I guess the only thing I'd say is obviously I'm on LinkedIn and things like that. If anyone has any more specific questions that we weren't able to address in this forum, absolutely feel free to reach out to me. Happy to help. And if I can't answer, which let's face it, there's quite a high chance that I can't. I do thankfully know quite a lot of people, so I'm sure I can put you in touch with the right person who can answer.
Absolutely. Just before people jump off, we had one more question come through, so I'll let people continue their poll. But one more question for you, Michael, which was, could you give some indicative pricing, please? Which I'm assuming the answer is going to be, it depends.
No, one of the things I firmly believe. So basically, when any software vendor approaches me, I try to get software out of COGS. So we generally have flat fee pricing. So basically, each of our apps are, and this is where I might get into trouble and I might get this a little wrong because we sell all around the world. if the team might shout at me afterwards. I think each of our apps are £50 per month when paid annually. Unlimited users, unlimited entities.
Amazing.
And I might be wrong by £10, which is super. I'm pretty sure I'm right. I'm pretty sure I'm right. £50 per month, but yeah. Sorry if that seems really woolly, everyone. I've literally just been on a roadshow where I've been speaking to clients in Singapore, Canada, America, Australia, and that's before some of the day-to-day calls. So I have to switch currency a lot. So I think it's £50 UK.
Amazing. Thank you very, very much. I think everyone has now answered the poll. So thank you very much for doing that. I will end that. And for those of you that ask for more information on various things, we will get that out to you as soon as possible, and teams on either side will be in touch. But a huge thank you to all of you, and an even bigger thank you to you, Michael, for coming along and sharing lots of useful insight with everyone today.
No, thank you for having the patience to listen to me. Um,
No
all
problem
right.
at all. Have a lovely day, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.